Variety is something we're severely lacking in Genshin Impact. This is not just in regard to the character kits. If you're looking at my team, it is Wanderer, Cyno, Xiao, and Zhongli. All of these individuals are hyper carries, save for Zhongli. Zhongli is only there simply because he's my favorite character, but outside of the animation difference and the elemental differences that some of them may have, they all perform vaguely similar roles to one another. With that being said, I also want to talk about the lack of variety, not only in terms of the kits themselves, but also characters. And this could be character models, this could be character designs. At the end of the day, I do want and think it's important to discuss, because if we're being honest here, we have no small male model, we have no difference in terms of body types, we have the three, which is the tall, medium, and small heights for female characters, but there's no difference in the body type. Realistically, the most difference you're going to find is the chest size in somebody like Hu Tao in comparison to somebody like Ganyu, and that's it. For male models, you have either tall or medium, and this means there's not much variety that they can do. Let's all be honest here. Ito doesn't look so different from somebody like Alhaitham. Yes, you have the hair model differences, but the basic standpoint and the basic build of this character is vaguely similar, or similar to such a degree that it's not really noticeable for a lot of individuals. No characters look significantly older or younger than one another, and this, yeah, to a degree, if you're somebody who cares about that, can lead to problems. But ignoring that, even still, there's not much variety. You will get more variety in the character's official art or even their splash art themselves. Narukami's Law for Raiden looks entirely different than what you really get from the character. Whether or not people like Dea or whether or not she's a good character has nothing to do with the fact that she provides an incredibly unique role, and she does something very unique in Genshin. She's a tank, and as of right now, we have no individuals who are meant to supplement that role in your team. And sure, many individuals may default to saying you don't need a tank. And yes, you're right. If you have an adamant healer like Kokomi, you do not need a tank. If you have a Zhongli, you don't need a tank. Many Yoimiya's teams run without a healer because Zhongli can provide that tanky defense himself, but she does something incredibly unique that isn't available from any other character in the game, and it differentiates her from everybody else. Whether or not you like Nilo, she does boost an entire elemental reaction, and as of right now, that's not something else we have in the game. Yes, we have elemental mastery sharing. This can be done with either weapons or burst, like Nahida's burst, but as of right now, Nilo is the only unit who buffs an entire reaction. You could argue Tartaglia, simply because of the fact that he's meant as an enabler, meaning that whilst he's on field the vast majority of the time, he is not necessarily meant to be dealing the most amount of damage, and he's not reliant on his elemental burst. Sure, you have a different mechanic. His elemental skill switches his weapon entirely, which is cool, and his elemental skill relies on how long you have it in. There's a cooldown that depends on how long you are in that stance mode itself. And at the same time, this also means he has his Riptide. He has two different burst forms. He's the only character in this game with this passive. Tartaglia is a very unique unit overall, but we've sort of lost this unique value in each character. You have infusion characters. This could be Hu Tao, this with her elemental skill infusion, which is also copied to Yoimiya, which is technically copied to somebody like Ayato. You have elemental burst reliant characters, starting with Xiao, then moving on to Raiden. Then you have Ito copying the exact same thing, with Cyno going over that. Alhaitham, despite him being a different element, and yes, there are many differences, he does have vaguely similar playstyles to somebody like Keqing, in that you can do a lot of normal attacks. He does infuse himself. Even Ayaka. Ayaka is an infusion-based character, yes, but she uses all parts of her kits relatively equally. What this means is that we're running into a lot of characters right now that are released with wonderful auto attacks or maybe wonderful bursts that you just don't care about. With the infusion based characters, you never really want to level their skills. Instead, you want to level their auto attacks and maybe their burst. In Yoimiya's case, it's not really her burst or her skill, so you're just leveling up one portion of it. Xiao's case is the exact same. His auto attacks matter so much. The opposite is true for burst reliant characters. Raiden only wants her burst leveled up and maybe her skill to level 6, but outside of that, that's it. You don't use a lot of these characters full potential. Ayato, Yelan follows suit. Even though her skill is good, she does not necessarily need to have it leveled up to such a high degree. Her auto attacks don't need to be leveled up to such a high degree. And this means that you have a character who may have beautiful animations, but they're just unused. And I think it's important to talk about because yes, we don't have a lot of variety in character kits. Yes, we don't have a lot of variety in body types. For females, you have tall, medium, and small. For males, you have tall, medium, and that's it. There's no differentiation. And in terms of body types, the biggest difference you're finding on the female characters is the chest size, and that could be on somebody like Hu Tao, where it's relatively speaking flat, compared to somebody like Yoimiya, who may have more. That's it. The males don't even get that. You have the slight differences you may get in an outfit, but realistically, that's all. And what this leads to is a lot of characters feeling very samey. Not only feeling samey, but looking samey. The splash arts, yes, they can look wonderful, they can look beautiful, but they don't matter when the character you get feels lackluster in comparison to what you just saw. If you're pulling for Wanderer, that's fine. You get a nice, beautiful splash art, but the character himself, his biggest differentiating factor is the giant hat, and this could be mitigated to a small degree by allowing some degree or freedom of customization. Maybe you could remove the hat off Hu Tao or the hat off Sina. Maybe you could pull the hood on Albedo. Anything. Just something to allow your character to look different than what everybody else either has. And if you're not getting that, then maybe some difference in designs. There's differences in the Mona skin. This skin versus the original. And yes, it's a difference in the type and a slightly different color scheme, but realistically, it's a difference nonetheless that a lot of people do notice whether you have the original Mona skin or this current one that I wear. We don't get that now. Instead, what we realistically get is characters that look very similar. And yes, the kits are very similar. I've mentioned this numerous times, but a lot of the kits are just copy paste of another, or if they're not that, they're just worse to such an extent where you don't feel like using them. Characters with unique kits that aren't good just aren't used. Characters with unique buffs that aren't worthwhile just are pushed to the side. Characters that offer buffs but are overshadowed by other characters will never be used unless they're good. Even Toma, who was a shielder, was not used until Dendro really came out and pushed him up further. And yes, older characters did have some nuance to them. Raze is an individual who relies on this burst, but his elemental skill generates an orb which gives you an additional particle outside of the particle it generates. If you swap off of him during his burst, he gets a portion of that energy back anyway. Every one of his constellations improves his kits. Beidou has the same thing. Her constellations improve her kit. And the base characters in the game worked extremely well, and we saw that decline with the amount of constellations required to get some characters up and running. 5 stars, we saw them replicating one another's success. If Yelan worked really well, okay, Xingqiu has the same kit. Cool. How come we have a situation where Raiden's burst switches her stance entirely, whereas we could have had Tartaglia in that you just get a different weapon and a different burst animation for her Polon versus her sword? That would be different and unique because it would allow you to choose, do you like Polon Raiden better? And maybe she has some unique capabilities in that form versus the sword itself. There's no variation. And yes, I know it's very easy to say, well, it costs more to design, but realistically, I think more people would be willing to say, I will pull for somebody like Dea or a Hytham if we saw something that made them truly unique. When our Hytham released and we saw the trailer, everybody was like, oh yeah, he's Dendro Kaching. That isn't a good thing. It isn't a good thing to look at a character and say, yeah, you're exactly like this other character who I don't like, or this other character who I do like but already have. I'm not saying every character should have some drastically different unique kit that hasn't been seen before. What I am saying though is that there is no value in pulling for a character who half their kit and half their animations are just worthless. If you're a Xiao main, you know, yeah, you may like his auto attacks, but you also know you will never use any of those because you'll just be jumping and plunging all day. Zhongli, this is an individual who may have really nice animations to you, but you won't use them simply because you only use his shield. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that I don't like the characters right now. I am saying though that I want more value and more uniqueness in their kit. What is the point in designing a character when only one portion of their kit is used? Or when they have an entire kit, entire animations, but all of it isn't worth building up? Yes, it saves resources when you only have to level one part of the kit, but it doesn't feel good when you have a unique animation that you really like that isn't worthwhile to use to begin with. These refund for crafting animations or crafting talents aren't useful. They're not unique. Everybody has them to a degree. These expending more decreases aren't really valuable because you spend more ascending weapons than actually moving up to the next ascension level. By this I mean moving a weapon from level 1 to 19 is more expensive than just getting it up to that additional ascension level. These decreasing stamina consumption don't really mean anything. I would like more benefit, more value, something maybe that adds a reason for me to put a character into the party. Maybe if you run Zhongli, you get double the ores. That would be legitimately useful for people stacking up on ores for crafting or for mining to get weapon experience. Maybe when you're with Raiden, you can't get struck by lightning, or your energy passively recharges to the rest of your party whilst you're roaming around the open world. Maybe Venti collects energy at a faster rate or pulls it closer towards him. Anything. Maybe loot is automatically drawn closer to him. There needs to be more variety, not just in the character kits and the character designs, but also the passive effects that make them worthwhile to have in the party to begin with. If every character gets a sprinting stamina decrease, no character is special. But I want to hear your perspectives, your opinions. What do you really want to see that make a character valuable or make a character unique to you? What would you like to see? Would you like to see a new alternative outfit? Maybe animations that are actually useful, like a normal attack that you can legitimately level. Personally, I just want to see more variety. In general, character designs, body types, animations, all of it.